50%? 50%, half, isn't it? 50, 60? 80% scientific English. I'm going to deceive you because it is far less. Only 10% of the paper is scientific, purely your field. And 90% is general English, which means if you have a great difficulty in vocabulary, it is due to your difficulties in the language itself, because you neglected it. Is that clear? Right. So the first piece of advice here is, in order to read correctly, learn the English language before, not the scientific English in which you are specialized. Clear, I hope, anyway. So, vocabulary, comprehension section by section. And this is what you are accustomed to doing. You usually read the paper attentively, carefully, in its different sections. Of course, you are going to give more focus to one part than another, according to your own interest. And finally, how to evaluate the paper and whether it is necessary for me or not as a researcher at that part of the research. To begin with, the introduction. Is it enough to say for you that the scientific paper is just a difficult task to accomplish? Is this definition enough? No. What is reading the scientific paper for you then? If it's not a difficult task, what is it? Objective. Comprehension. Reading is comprehension. Right. Reading is objective, you mean. You mean purpose. Problem. What do you mean with problem? The problem you are reading about, or the topic you are reading about?
Maybe the topic.
Maybe the topic. What is discussed? Is it? The results, okay. Everybody has got his own definition in mind according to his needs. Okay, have you ever read a scientific paper to be able to write a scientific paper? Yes. Right? This is my purpose in these few days, which is to establish a relationship between reading and writing. You can never be able to write without reading. You remember, since you were young, at primary education, your teachers used to tell you, hey, you should read and read. Then, when you started to learn French, you remember, they told you also to read French novels. To learn what? To learn how to write. Because you cannot really write without reading. You should have something stocked in your memory to be able to read, to write about it. So, one thing which is going to be of great focus for me is how to become a good writer after reading. And you cannot really become a good writer without reading anyway. Now, objective or problem, you told me results also. What else can you give as a definition for the scientific paper? A reference. What else? What is the scientific paper? And reading it for you. I'd like the definitions to come from you. For me, many of you told me that it is a difficult task. It's not going to be easy. It is a wealth of knowledge, isn't it? A wealth. C'est une richesse de connaissances, which I might use in my own work. Right. What else? I'm going to stop here. However, many of you also discovered this as a difficult task since the beginning of your own research. Why was it difficult? I have heard the difficulty in vocabulary. What else is difficult about it? What is difficult about reading the scientific paper? The structure, the plan. Okay, keep this in mind. I'll go back to you. What else? Sorry? The meaning. Okay, how to guarantee a meaning in a sentence when I read it. Very good. Also, I'm going to keep this idea in mind. And the other thing, what is also difficult. Why did you say meaning? You need to be really very, very... I hear nice music. I hope it doesn't come from the hotel anyway. Sorry?
Focus out.
Focus, yes. Right. An objective, a focus, and precision, mainly. Science is precision. You cannot read about something without understanding it with precision. If you understand it thoroughly, you might make mistakes with it. Anyway, many people say that the reasons for these difficulties are either a lack of specialized knowledge. What does it mean for you? Lack of specialized knowledge.
Scientific parts.
What does it mean? Lack, mock, shortage. Sorry? Lack of experience. What do you mean with experience? Say it. Don't be afraid. Even if you are thesis students, you don't know everything about your own field. Do you? Not yet. And even at the end of your research, you don't know enough in your field. And even if you are grow older and you climb the professional ladder, you will not be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. We are usually students and learners, aren't we? So, this is what I mean. Lack of specialized knowledge means you don't know enough in your field to be able to read it and understand it. Which means that in my reading of the class of the scientific paper, I need to classify my readings. I shall begin with something easy to end up with something more complicated. Sophisticated, if you want. It's all right. Yes, come in. Sorry? Very good. To create some order for your own reading. Reading the difficulty of vocabulary. I come here. Many linguists also said that the scientific paper is difficult because of the difficulty of vocabulary. How can you overcome this difficulty? You know the meaning of to overcome?
Yes.
Right. Well, to pass means to succeed. And I hope you all pass anyway. Ce sont des faux amis entre le français et l'anglais. Passer et to pass. To pass in English is to succeed.
Overcome.
Bypass, okay. This is in computer language. Well, to overcome means to transcend, to surmount, surmonter a problem. How can you surmount this problem? Very bad. Don't listen to them. This is the worst thing you can use. Google Translator. There is a proverb in Italian that says traditori traduttori, which means in French, traduire, c'est trahir. Et je crois bien qu'il n'y a pas quelqu'un dans cette salle qui aime la trahison. Almost aussi bien que femme. I'm sure about that. Yes or no? Yes. All right. Now, if you translate something, you might betray it. To betray is the word in English. So, you might betray the language, the source of the language. And you might create a problem to yourself because your information is not going to be correct. Am I clear?
Yes.
Now, if we forget about Google Translator from this row, what does this row suggest? A dictionary. Right. And I'm going to add a paper dictionary, which should be in every home. You are not going to lose it. You are not going to waste your money when you buy something similar to this, because the dictionary is a teacher. It teaches you the word, its meanings, and its context, and the meaning you would like, and the way it is pronounced, and how to use it in sentences. And it is a teacher which is usually at home with you. Perfect. You are not going to pay a lot of money for it, are you? Google Translator, however, is a tool which you might use. You copy the word, you paste it, click on the button, and you get the translation. Well, sometimes the translation seems to be strange. Does he mean so? Est-ce que ça veut dire ça؟ بالنسبة لي كنت سي tout à fait étrange. Est-ce que ça veut dire ça؟ لا من نجم يكون كان هكا. نقلوا أنفسنا بالديفينيسيون اللي عطاها لنا جوجل ترانزليت واللي في بعض الأحيان تكون خاطئة كامل ما عندها حتى علاقة et surtout avec un anglais scientifique spécifique. Donc, je me suis dit, une mauvaise compréhension, tout simplement. Donc, pour une mauvaise compréhension, je me suis dit que j'allais me battre. Je il va prendre note, il va rédiger une partie, l'encadrant, what is this? This is so. Where did you get it from? I have never known this. You are wrong. This is wrong. This is nonsense. Très bien. Donc c'est un deuxième processus. Bien. Now, a difficult vocabulary, use an adequate dictionary. I'm going to say adequate, convenient, for your own. Not a mini, small pocket dictionary for beginners. Now, and you're going, sir, I didn't find the word in it. No, you're not going to find it, of course. You need a dictionary of your own level. Am I clear? 3, the fear of understanding, inability of understanding. And this has been a problem in the English language since secondary education. I don't understand English. What if I don't understand English? C'est cette peur de l'anglais qui a été délaissée pour longtemps, avec les matières scientifiques, bien sûr. Malheureusement, thank you for switching off your mobiles. Anyway, so this fear of not being able to understand English is going to push you not to read English. And this is psychological. And when we say it is psychological, it becomes harder to solve. You need a psychiatrist. No, I'm just joking. You need to correct things yourself, by setting up things yourself. Learn English to forget about this fear. Read in English. Accustom yourself to English. But don't say, I'm not going to understand English. This is wrong. Now, this fear also is born because we neglected English for a long time as scientists, unfortunately. You remember? Sorry?
Result of the first 2 points, lack of knowledge and difficulty of vocabulary.
Possibly. I wouldn't say that it is purely the result, but there is a relationship between them. The fourth element is the lack of the reading habit. Reading. Do you read books at home? No. We have forgotten about reading. And the more we forget about reading, the more it will be difficult to read. Okay? The more you don't read, the less you read. The less you read, the less beneficial it is. The more difficult it will be. Do you understand what I mean? How much time do you spend reading a paper? How much time do you spend reading? Continuously, without interruption. This mobile phone, kill it! Kill the mobile phones, please. Thank you. Now, how much time do you spend? It depends. How much? 1 hour? 2 hours? 3? Anybody who reads 3 successive hours? No. 2 days. Can you read it continuously for 2 days? No, this is exaggeration. Yeah, I think that about 2. This is the maximum you can do. 1.5. Half an hour with a break.
It's the first
Okay?
The second time, and it depends of what I want to find in this paper.
Okay. How much time finally? When you find what you are going to read, etc., etc.
If I read this topic and this result, maybe
You will continue reading for
for 1 day.
1 day
Yeah.
with no flip.
2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the
Right. Well, this is what I wanted to put here. 2 hours. 2 hours is the maximum you can read, isn't it? Right. Well, there is a linguist who said that the more continuously the read, or you read, the better it will be for your understanding. Because if you interrupt yourself, you are going to need time again to regain this conducting idea in the whole paper. Do you understand what I mean? So the more you interrupt, the more it will be difficult to continue. And of course, if you need to understand a paper on the spot, read it on the spot. So the shorter you will need, the more beneficial it will be. Do you understand it? And here, this lack of reading habit is the responsible factor. So get accustomed to reading. Go back to the old tradition when you used to read good, long books, and you start reading at 9 to finish at midnight, and even after that, because you were fond of reading. Unfortunately, physics, mathematics have left no time for reading. Isn't it true? No?
It's a
I
reality.
hope anyway. Now, there are some solutions on the other hand. And among these is, as your friend said, have an objective in mind. When you read, you need to have an objective. What is my objective behind reading this paper? What do I need it for? Le papier que je suis en train de lire, quel objectif? Donc, quel objectif je suis en train de le faire? Yes.
Results.
Maybe the results, maybe the method, maybe the way it is built, the architecture. Sorry? The background knowledge. Yes, why not? The system model. Okay, we are becoming more and more specific here. The second one is to get accustomed to the field. Get accustomed to the field. We said that nobody is perfect. The more we learn, the more we are informed. Yes, but nobody is perfect. So if you find that a paper is difficult, keep it to another day. You will read it more easily. Because if you are strong-headed, as many of you are, you know the meaning of strong-headed? راسه صحيح. ما تقراهش تواك راهو مش يعمل لك برشا difficulty. لا مش نقراه. And here you are going to lose a lot of time on it. And I know that time is money. It is precious. So it can be read in a shorter period if you discover more about your field. Do you understand? So sometimes you don't need to be that strong-headed. Be flexible. Okay? The other is the language shouldn't matter, which means here English shouldn't matter. Many of you have had difficulties in English, but the first year was more difficult than the second year, and the second year was easier, and the third year was even easier and easier. So the more you read in English, the more you feel at ease with it. Isn't it true? Yes. Well, if we add something else to this equation, which is get yourself trained in English. Get a training. I am not making publicity for any paid training. Training can be individual, by yourself, on your computer, on a website, specialized in teaching English, for free. Don't pay money. You can learn by yourself. The BBC, you know it, don't you? Yes. It has got a website, a teaching website, which is called Learn English with the BBC. And it has got different levels, from beginners up to the advanced level. And in each level, there is listening, reading comprehension, grammar, language, vocabulary, essay writing. So you can learn by yourself, and you don't need to go to a school which is far away. You may remain at home, get a training on the language, on English. because unfortunately you missed a lot of things in English. And that's why we say the language shouldn't matter. You can, of course, if you are fond of spending your money and wasting it on schools, there are plenty of schools, wherever you go, that teach you English. So it's up to you to choose anyone. It can be for free, it can be paid. Finally, allow yourself time to read. What does it mean?
To care.
Sorry?
To care. Maybe
To?
love. To care.
To care for the reading. Is it?
Maybe.
It doesn't matter.
Give yourself a time.
Yeah, what does it mean?
Um,
Get rid of your friends. Get rid of your colleagues in the laboratory. Get rid of your family members. Be by yourself and allow yourself the time to read. Forget about your husband, your wife, your children. Get yourself. Even if it is late in the night when everybody is asleep. This is the best time to read. You can do it. But don't tell me, well, today I was in the laboratory and I couldn't read anything for 4 or 5 hours. Of course you can't. Because every half an hour there is somebody coming in and they're going to have some coffee with it and chat about I don't know what. I don't think so. Right. However, as we can see here, there are difficulties which are your own responsibility as readers. But there are many other difficulties which are born from the writing. And here, remember that there is usually a facilitator of your process. There is something which is going to make your process of reading the scientific paper easily. Among these factors is the organization of the scientific paper. And here I'd like you to remember this abbreviation of IMRAD. IMRAD comes from Introduction, Materials and Methods, Results and Discussion. This is the IMRAD structure of the scientific paper. What we have here is also an abstract and a conclusion. Well, why aren't they included? Do you know who came up with the IMRAD structure of the scientific paper? Anybody who knows the source or the origin? No? It was a man called Pasteur. The name tells you something. Okay. And this Pasteur, 100 years ago, suggested this kind of structure of the paper because it is the easiest way for people to build or also to read in. Am I clear? And from that time, it has been adopted for the different fields of sciences. It is the same. So, let's discover these parts. What is the content of each of these parts? And of course, I'm going to begin with the summary or the abstract. What kind of information do we read about? I know that everything is displayed in front of you, but I go little by little. Brief background to the topic. What does it mean? What does it tell you?
the context.
The context.
One main idea.
Yes. The context of the problem or the issue or the topic. Sorry? I don't understand French, I'm sorry. What is it in English?
General idea.
Great, you know English. Okay, this is a discovery. So we say a background to the topic. The general idea that introduces the topic. And after that, we might find some concise description of the major findings. And findings here is synonym of?
Results.
Thank you. Results. Of course, we may, and this is an obligation, to relate your study to the general field of sciences. We should never forget that, because you as a researcher, you belong to a certain field of research. And this relationship should be basic and established all the paper around. By the way, sometimes you are going to feel that I am talking about reading the way I talk about writing. Do you know why? It's not because I'm confused, no. But because we cannot really separate them from each other, only artificially. La lecture et l'écriture du papier scientifique sont d'une liaison extrêmement étroite, au point qu'on ne peut pas vraiment les séparer. Donc, parfois, vous allez sentir que je parle de la lecture du papier scientifique et je passe directement à la production. C'est vu cette liaison étroite entre les deux. So, forgive me. Right, let's continue. The last idea is the logical order of the abstract is the order of the paper. Do you know this? Why according to you? What do you read in the proceedings of the conference? Do you read papers? No. What do you read then? Abstracts. When you send a journal to tell them that you would like to submit your paper with them,
You put
what are they going to ask you for first?
the abstract.
The abstract. What does this mean? What does the abstract give? The general idea, the findings, all the different parts of your paper. We say that the abstract is the mini version of the paper. A mini version of the paper. So, remember the way you write your own abstracts. Sometimes it has been funny because you borrow sentences from each part and you say, this is my abstract. Careful with this. Tomorrow I'll punish you for it. The introduction. What do we read about? There are a lot of things here. First of all, you may write the background knowledge necessary for the paper. What does it mean? The background knowledge necessary for the paper. Do we find all the literature review? No. Only what was necessary for your own paper. And this is very, very important also for you to produce. When you think, because you know one of the most difficult things to write in the paper is, what is it? The introduction. Do you know why? One of the difficulties is this. What am I going to put in it? How am I going to limit it?
It will push the reader how to introduce more to explore, to attract.
Yeah, I like the way she says it in English. Yeah, go on. Don't interrupt her.
The introduction will push the reader to learn more about the article.
Okay.
The
Keep this for tomorrow. This is a very good definition of the introduction. This idea of to push the reader to read. Right. I'm going to say to lure, that not to push. Right. Well, the background knowledge here is of all the things you have read. And the producer of the paper has read for this paper to become possible. 2 is what we call the accepted state of knowledge, l'état de l'art, as you know it in French, and in your own specialized field. And of course, we may read about the reason of being of the findings and their relevance to the field. One of the main questions you may be asked, the way of your soutenance, is, why have you chosen this topic? And the person who asks you such a question, what is he asking about exactly? God knows. شنو يسألنا؟ La raison d'être de votre sujet. Not only the title, but the topic itself. La raison d'être du sujet. Do you understand the meaning? This is the meaning of the reason for being of the topic. And here, why is this topic important to discuss in this paper? This is the idea. You might be reading about it and you ignore it because it's not really very, very important for you from the point of view of information. You are more interested in the information in the paper. Anyway. However, some papers are based on hypotheses. And here, the kind of information we find is going to be a bit different because for such a kind of papers, we usually spell or give what we call the source of this hypothesis. Where did you get this hypothesis from? And the findings with which this hypothesis is consistent. The findings are the results. Finally, what predictions can we make to prepare our readers for the end of the paper? Of course, here there are things we can find in papers which are based on a hypothesis, not papers which you might read about something which is theoretical, then justified with something empirical to come out with a conclusion about the thing. Am I clear? It's going to be different. And here, the hypothesis, you are going to find 3 elements additional to what was already